But I met him at the end of his life, and I didn't play his instrument. So those were two things in my favor. But he could come down hard. He could come down on really hard on you. I mean, you just couldn't take it too seriously. And just kind of laugh and say, okay, so what do I do about it? His niece, who's older than me, one of his nieces happens to live in Boston, and she's a librarian at Boston University. She's dealing with letters of Ralph's, and would you write the foreword? I said, I'd love to. And then there's a couple letters that he wrote to me, and one of mine to him in the book, which was published recently.
Nice.
And I wrote in the foreword, I think the best thing I've ever written of, as far as words, the best words I ever wrote about him. It's such a great portrait of Ralph. It's just spot on. It's absolutely perfect. It couldn't have been done better. It really captures his character, just like 15 photographs. It's really amazing. But anyway, yeah, he had this idea, which I mean, I learned a lot from him also in teaching. I mean, he had this idea. He was more patient actually in a certain way than I am. I mean, he would let the student, agonizingly slowly figure things out. But I played a lot of Scarlatti for him, a lot of Bach, all the violin works, most of the lute works, probably about 10 Scarlatti sonatas. I mean, I was, 19, 20 something, so I had just started to make these transcriptions. But he loved the music of Sohr. I played a lot of Sohr for him. I played all those etudes for him. He liked those. I played the Britten Nocturnal for him. He was a great musician. It didn't really matter what played. I mean, he certainly was.
Yeah, of course.
Probably the single most intelligent person I've ever met. As far as just amazing intellectual brilliance, just incredible. And he knew everything. He knew everything. He was going blind when I met him. By the time I started to study with him seriously, he was completely blind. He would sit behind this huge table. It was maybe even bigger than that. This was an old tree trunk that had been cut off on a slab like this thing. Mm-hmm. And he would sit behind this thing. Everything. We talk about this, we talk about that. He said, well, I'm dying to hear what you brought. What have you got today? And then I would play for him, and sitting like almost a little further than you, behind this desk. And his house was up on a hill, and a beautiful seascape down below. And so he would sit there. This was like 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, something like that. And the sun would slowly set behind him. It was amazing. And he would work with me, and then he'd be at me, for about 2 hours or 2.5 hours. He said, "Well, I can tell you're absolutely exhausted. He said, let's go have some dinner." So then his companion would come and start cooking, and he'd say, "Well, what would you like to drink?" He said, "I'm having house mixture myself. The house mixture like the 2 strongest, like vodka and John." He said, "I don't know about your tolerance." He said, "Mine is unlimited." And then he starts talking. He talked about anything. So I said, "Well, what's your opinion about Goethe?" And he goes. Then one night I saw him. He was completely blind. I saw him he opens the oven like this, and there are baked potatoes in there.
Yeah.
He goes like this. Amazing. Didn't burn his fingers either.
Oh my God.
Amazing. He takes him out there blind. Oh my God.
But when did he actually start to get blind?
Oh, when I met him, around 74, 75.
Okay.
He would play all these recitals. There was a string. You take the string, follows the string, finds the harpsichord. The string's attached to the harpsichord, so he follows the string. Finds the harpsichord, goes over, sits down, finds middle C, and off he goes. Yeah. He learned 18 Scarlatti sonatas by ear that he played blind, that he had never played before, and he's like doing these leaps like this all night. It's amazing. Then one night when I was at his house, he said, "Well, I must play the clavichord in your presence one time." And so he goes over and he takes out this key and he opens the clavichord up, and then he starts playing. He's like playing all these preludes from these English suites and stuff, and he's just like, this is going on and on and on and on. And something comes into his head, and so instead of, something comes into his head from a different you know, different suite. Well, he modulates into the suite, and then he, like in the A minor suite, then he modulates into the G minor, and then he starts playing the G minor suite. And just went on and on that night. It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Many times, many times. And then one time I was there, and he was trying to learn Braille, you know. And he was doing this Shakespeare sonnet. He said, "Now, would you please read this Shakespeare sonnet? See if I've got this right. That time of year thou mayst in me observe." There's a great sonnet, 73. It's about old age. Bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. You know, ruined choirs, bare ruined choirs. Nudi rovinati cori dove prima I dolci usciolini hanno cantato. It's about basically somebody dying, you know, and burning themselves up. You know, it's one of the most beautiful sonnets. It's incredible. Great sonnet. That's how I got introduced to that sonnet. I didn't know that sonnet. We talk about everything. Literature, politics, history. His mind was all over the place. And then he'd say, and this time he's totally blind, says, "Now go into the living room and in the second bookshelf, behind because he has so many books, right? So he doesn't have he has got books, then he's got a whole other side. Every bookshelf has like 2 layers of books. He says, "Now go there, and now you take out such and such a book, and it's written by such." And he says, "Now go there, and you'll see certain costumes." He said, "Now those relate to those variations of sword that you were playing for me today. You know, he said, look at this. You see, now that's what the people were wearing at that time. So I want you to imagine that, you know, and these pieces that are related to sort of dance movements and that, you know, things like that." He would talk about. Yeah, he was amazing. And that Scarlatti book, that sounds like Ralph. That's got his voice in it. There's an incredible thing on YouTube of him playing Rameau live when he was totally blind. It's like I think it's a Gavotte with 6 variations. It's amazing. You put Ralph Kirkpatrick Rameau and you get it. It's incredible. It's live, and he's like Zeus throwing thunderbolts. He just like gets wilder and wilder and wilder. There's one place where he changes the registration, and since he's totally blind, his fingers slip a bit, and he plays this descending tritone, which is not supposed to be in there, right? But he doesn't. He's blind. He's trying to change the registration to pull out the 16-foot or something. Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. So he was the real thing.